Commissioners Bateson, David, Harwood, Malloy, Slater, and Buell are present, and Commissioner James is not here yet. Let's go with the changes to the agenda. Anything? Ah, there he is. Does anyone have any changes to the agenda? Okay. First thing then will be approval of the September 11th public hearing minutes.
I move to approve September 11th, 2025 minutes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? Okay. Then I will turn this over to David.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. I should acknowledge Mr. Siegel and Mr. Wickman, who are here representing their respective cities. And I'm sorry, I don't know the gentleman to the far right.
Field Harrington, I'm also with Post Malls.
Oh, okay, thank you. And thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
I'll open things up with a little context before we get into the details. Ben knows more about the details than I do. But I think maybe the good starting point should be that you may recall we discussed some time ago that the state legislature changed the state law requiring us to go from, are you hearing me? Yeah, I'm on.
You're on, okay.
Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
I wouldn't mind if the volume comes up a little bit, because there's a hum that, in the room.
Okay.
Well, just a quick aside, I'll mention, unrelated to the agenda, the commissioners have authorized yet again another reworking of the sound system. So that'll be forthcoming, that should help. But the sound system we had last installed has been less than helpful at times, so I'm sorry. But back to the point, the legislature changed the state law so that all of the municipalities in the state have to redo all of what used to be called area of city impacts to area of impacts. The noticeable change of eliminating city is rather telling, in my view. If you read through the legislation that the state adopted, it expressly says that these now areas of impact shall be governed by county regulations, not city. It also reined in the distances that these AOIs, area of impacts now, could cover. Whereas they used to be unregulated, now they can be no more than 2 miles from the existing corporate limits. So that was the state legislature basically saying counties in this case will have the last and final say over these reviews. But to give you a little more context, it's useful to know that areas of impact and areas of city impact all are really nothing more than intergovernmental agreements so that cities and counties will play nice in the sandbox when it comes to development around the borders of cities. The usefulness of that for a city and a county can be that you don't have development right next to corporate limits that becomes unannexable. It's hard for me to say. Hard to annex for a city because it could be developed in a way that doesn't have curb and gutter, doesn't have adequate right of way, doesn't have this, that, and the other things that cities actually have to have in order to annex. So again, that's what I meant by just playing nice in the sandbox. So there is, to me, in my view, a usefulness to areas of impact. And so we've gone through all this with all the cities that are willing so far. Not all the cities have responded yet. We have 2 right behind this first group. There'll be a second wave. That'll probably be the total we'll get through this year. And then all the other cities will have to wait till after the year. But the worst thing that happens to them under state law, the cities I mean, is that they can't legally annex since they don't have areas of impact as required by law. That actually doesn't prevent them from annexing because from what I understand, the state attorney general nor anyone else in the state level plans to go after cities that might violate the law. But what the law actually says is the city is not supposed to annex unless there is an area of impact agreement. So just keep that in mind as one of the few sticks as part of the legislature's decision on this process.
David,
Yes, sir.
what was the purpose or the hopeful purpose in this change?
I'm not entirely sure because that was the politics in Boise and I wasn't involved. But reading between the lines, what I think happened was in the Boise area, there was some problems in the way cities and counties were not getting along. And so the state legislature decided to step in.
And it seems like it's giving the county more
Yes.
power.
Well, it's absolutely the case. The law now says county regulations shall apply.
Or before the city had control?
Well, it could have. The example we changed, I think, about 4 or 5 years ago now with Hauser. In the Hauser area city impact, we actually let the city Hauser, we the county, let the city of Hauser have review and use city regulations in the areas in the unincorporated county. That created a lawsuit, which we lost, and we had to pay attorney's fees. And that's the kind of nightmare that this will avoid.
That seems to create some more uniformity within the county.
Absolutely.
Because otherwise you have a patchwork, because cities do
Yes.
it differently.
And harder to enforce
Right.
because of that patchwork.
Right.
So I'm glad you brought that up.
But it's fundamentally an agreement between the city and the county
Yes, sir.
that establishes that area of impact.
Yes. And so each city has worked up their own agreement. I'll get to you. Each city has gone to their respective councils and gotten council agreement, city council agreement before we are going forward.
It
So
seems like,
this is a literal agreement
right,
that'll be signed on both sides before it goes into county regulation.
and I'm assuming fundamental to the city's negotiation for the area of impact or whatever goes on is their further expansion, what they want to do in further expanding the city, because they have to have the area of impact.
That's where the map comes in.
Right, okay.
Yes, sir.
So I'm Field Harrington. I'm Field Harrington. I'm the city attorney for Post Falls. I can shed a little bit of light on the legislative bit.
Thank you.
This really came out of some lawsuits down in the Boise area, particularly between the cities of Star and Middleton. They were sort of trying to annex and use their ACIs to compete with each other. It wasn't really an issue that we had up here. We've had an ACI, area of city impact, or area of impact, but we've had these overlapping agreements where we have a shared tier with Rathdrum and Hayden, and everybody played really nice in the sandbox, to borrow David's bit. So that's worked really well up here for us. So it really was a southern Idaho problem that the legislation was seeking to fix. A lot of what this does is it really keeps the status quo. It's just removing that shared tier bit of it. So everybody has kind of talked about where their boundaries really lie. So we're not going to have overlapping ACIs. One of the big changes in the new law was you can't have overlapping ACIs anymore, or area of impact now. So, hope
Thank
that-
you, good point.
Yep.
And so what you have in front of you, that shared tier goes away. And again, to your point, that makes it easier for us to administrate because we don't have to monkey around with who gets what over what proposal.
Right, because of the uniformity in that, the areas of impact are already within the county, subject to county regulation, so it really doesn't affect the individuals that much.
Right.
As opposed to a city expanding its jurisdictional powers to the area, it can create another layer of regulation. Right?
That's right.
Okay, I got it.
Another usefulness of this that we're clarifying is that in the past there was some uncertainty about whether mere building permits triggered a review by the city. These new OIs should eliminate that uncertainty so that it's clear as can be that things like subdivisions, rezonings, variances those kinds of things trigger a review, but mere building permits do not. So again, there's usefulness in redoing these things. That's among that usefulness. That's really it in a nutshell. I think we can, if you want, go into the details of each city, but I think the easy answer or takeaway for today is that each city has set up a little bit of a different trigger for review than because of what they need. And so, for instance, I think Coeur d'Alene has the longest number of triggers. Is that right, Jim?
Yep, that's right.
And that sort of figures for reasons you can well imagine. So that's it, unless, Ben, you want to tack on, jump into details?
To add, yeah.
I didn't get that last part, though. What do you mean the triggers?
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, what do you mean?
Oh, what the cities review?
Yeah.
Well, the city of Coeur d'Alene, for instance, wants, I'm trying to remember some of the things that go beyond variances, subdivisions, plot plans.
Yeah, I could,
If you can pull it up,
I don't have my HDMI cable, or maybe we could just pull one out.
actually just the hard copy.
Yeah, are you have the hard copy for you
We
guys?
have one right next to you, Ben.
Okay, I've got it on the screen here too, thank you.
We're looking at the
So-
Coeur d'Alene.
Uh-huh.
What's your page?
If you're looking at things like, specifically within the city of Coeur d'Alene's agreement, under 8.10.203 standards, specifically B,
There it is.
they say that, the subdivision regulations of the county apply, except that there are these additional things that they will apply to those subdivisions within this area of impact boundary. Things like utility infrastructure, stub outs, road widths, thicknesses profiles, dedication of right-of-way, maximum grade on access, fire and emergency standards, and so on. And then furthermore, outside of subdivisions, it has additional things too, which I think, C would apply to, or not necessarily outside of subdivisions, but subdivisions and in addition to subdivisions. So that's just an example of some of the additional standards that the city of Coeur d'Alene is placing within their area of impact. And then also even furthermore, in number 5 of C, they are also excluding potential conditional use permit classifications of different uses. So those would no longer be eligible for conditional use permits within the Coeur d'Alene's area of impact, as an example. Like David was saying, the city of Coeur d'Alene certainly has the longer list of standards within their agreement.
So these are mutually agreed to between the county and the city,
Yes.
and they deviate from the county's, just the county regulations.
Yeah, I mean, whether or not they're agreed to by the county, we'll wait and see what the board decides, but yeah. Assuming that they,
Because what I'm looking at is who's gonna be disgruntled about this, who's gonna, come to the hearings and scowl at us.
Somebody that wants a
And it's gonna,
batch plant right next to the city limits.
right, it's gonna be, because there is now another layer of restrictions. I'm not criticizing it, just saying there is,
Yeah.
to keep this, the expansion of the city. The whole point is to have the cities expand in a sort of a rational, organized way, right? And to avoid, chaos and people doing things that intrude upon other people's property rights, that kind of thing. So you're trying to make it uniform and all. But am I reading it right that, there's gonna be some people that are disgruntled by them being told they can't do these things or other restrictions?
That's entirely possible. But the reverse is also true. I remember 30 years ago when I worked for the city of Dallas, Texas. And we had, like many big cities, we had little pockets all throughout the city that were batch plants and other things that were just couldn't be annexed because they were nightmares. And back then, we didn't have any government agreements. with cities and counties. The county didn't even have zoning when I worked in Texas. And so this is the sort of thing that tries to get ahead of that game
Right.
in a useful way. And yes, there will be politics to it. As Ben says, I can't really predict what the board's going to do with it. But so far, I haven't heard any pushback from this. And all of this is on our Keeping Kootenai webpage. And Bill?
To add to that as well, we currently have these sort of standards already in place. So we're really, again, it goes back to that status quo thing. So I don't know that anybody's really going to change because we already have these sort of standards in place right now.
But am I reading it wrong? Aren't you expanding the area of impact?
No, in fact, everybody's kind of pulling back because we have that
Okay.
that sort of 2 mile limit, and we don't have that overlapping shared tier anymore. So it's smaller and more constrained.
Okay, so it's really not putting on another layer.
Another layer.
No, I think it's kind of keeping the layer the same. It's just defining. Each city will now have a defined area of impact rather than. So it used to be, for example, Post Falls and Rathdrum had an overlapping shared tier on the prairie, and so if one city wanted to annex into the shared tier, we had our exclusive tier and then our shared tier. We would actually have to just come to the table and work it out with Rathdrum, like who's going to provide services, who's best suited to provide those services, and so on like that. So it really was a collaborative aspect, whereas now it'll just be a line. So.
Well, I guess my ultimate question is, where are the issues if there are any here? I mean, are there people unhappy with this? Are there cities that don't want to cooperate with this? I mean, and how does that affect us, or does it? Anything we should do?
Yeah, I honestly don't think for this area, I don't really think anything is changing. It's just because of the state law change, we have to go through this process. So I don't think really anything's substantially changing.
And I don't foresee any big pushback. Usually by now I would have heard if there was going to be an uproar.
Have you ever read it? Did I ever mention the essay that Flatcatcher you? I gotta get you that essay.
I would like
It's
that.
about a guy in your position who's the Flatcatcher.
I would like that. Bob?
Bob Seal, Community Development Director with the City of Post Falls. As we're going through this first round, doing it this time, I don't see any issues, as you were just saying. But I could imagine in 5 or 10 years or even 15 years from now, as we continue to move out slowly into our set AOIs, that there's going to be more discussion between the cities and trying to determine in reality where are we moving to. Because I do know that there are already some areas within our AOI that the people who hold those lands are unsure whether they want to actually be placed in Rathdrum's AOI versus our AOI or anybody's. Maybe right now it's best to just kind of leave them out of it because they have an intention to go one city or another, but they don't want it defined today. I think that as we move along, things could change. But anyways, that's just kind of my thought.
Well, that's a good point.
Which gets back to the private property rights of being able to choose where they want to go.
Yeah, the issue is going to be when you expand it, people are going to come under the jurisdiction of whatever the shared agreement or the agreement with the county, and that's when you'll get some friction because you'll have some limitations on what they can do with their property. If I'm hearing you right, that's non-changes.
Using that as a jumping off point, one of the things I hope our new comprehensive plan, county comp plan, at least broaches as a subject is a discussion among our cities and the county residents about possible limits to growth and possible open space between the cities. I will be so bold as to say I worked for a county in Colorado that had that worked out by intergovernmental agreements a quarter of a century ago. And each city in Boulder County had limits which they would not pass, and the county agreed to it through an intergovernmental agreement. That made land use planning much easier. It also made open space acquisition much easier and possible because there was political agreement on all levels that the city boundary lines were stopping here, or here, or here. So again, I don't know that that'll be the outcome here. I just hope that there's a discussion and dialogue about those kinds of things when it comes to long-range planning.
I guess my question isn't necessarily totally about this particular topic, but of course my concern is as we continue to annex into the cities, of course the lot sizes become quite a bit smaller, and I'm more interested in infrastructure and sewage treatment and stuff like that, protection of the aquifer. So just those types of issues. I know of, you know, if say my address is Athol, and say if Athol was going to grow and they wanted to incorporate my subdivision into Athol, well, they're all 5 and 10 acre lots, all on septic tanks and wells. So I mean, it makes a, you know, how does the infrastructure and stuff like this work out? And I know it's not part of this process, but I think it's something we need to keep in our minds. And I'm sure you guys in the cities are well aware of that. If you annex an area, are you going to provide sewer collection and sewer treatment at your sewer treatment plant or whatever?
Right.
You know,
So generally speaking, we don't annex property until a property owner requests that annexation. So they have to be contiguous, they have to be surrounded by the city or whatever, meet those criteria. And we only annex them upon their request. And so it's the property owner asking to come in.
And your ability to service.
And our ability to service. I was getting to that. And then when that happens, then they're responsible for hooking into water and sewer and
And one of
getting
the
off
reasons I
septic.
bring this up, I was stationed in Boise for 5 years with the government, and I had land out, you know, in Ada County, and all those lots were acre lots, and they were on septic tanks and drain fields. But when they started annexing them into Boise, they started telling all those people they were gonna put in a sewer line and they had to hook up to it. So that, you know, it became a real stinky issue there, so, yeah.
Well, and there is the aspect that, well, actually, so for instance, I was at a meeting with Dave recently at the NIBCA with Panhandle Health, talking about the fact that septic tanks will fail. Eventually they will fail. That's just a guarantee.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, we do have, in Post Falls, we have a lot of county neighborhoods that were established sometime in, the 70s, 80s, 90s even, I think mostly 70s, 80s, that, they're all on septics, and right now, there's no way that we don't have sewer lines going through those areas, but I don't want to see the constituents that are kind of within our boundaries, suddenly having a valueless house because they have no ability to flush their toilet. So, in the future, we do anticipate needing to get those sewer lines into place, so that is part of it too. But yes, I mean, and our goal is to, have it all handled by our wastewater treatment facility. Let's stop putting stuff directly down into the aquifer, and, but our wastewater treatment facility is upgrading and preparing for the growth that is happening in the area, so.
So the two requirements, I guess, is what you say are that the landowner has to agree to annexation and the city has to have the capability to service that property. Is that statutory? So it's not just how each city does it. It's across the boards. It's a statutory. Those are statutory elements.
Yes, with a caveat. There is a way that the city can initiate annexation. So, for instance, like if you had a subdivision that had a bunch of failed septic systems, that it makes sense to get the entire subdivision in. There are some pathways to do that where the city can initiate it and basically force those other properties to come in.
So you do have a path to forced annexation.
There is a path for forced annexations, but we do
City
not see
councils
it.
are loath to do it.
Yeah,
I see.
it's just something we don't see.
And it's a limited path. I think that there's a limit as
lot
to
of
how
caveats.
many there's a lot
Right,
of
so
caveats.
it's part statutory, part convention.
Yeah, and you have to have a certain amount of, a percentage of the property owners agree to it and so on and so forth. So you have to have 50% of the whole area and stuff like that. But
This is a bit of an adjacent conversation, so tell me if it needs to take place at a different time. But what I've heard is that when it comes to going to the resources and saying, do we have the capacity to add this population, that like police, fire, water are reticent to say, no, we can't handle it, when really they can't. So how do we deal with that to help encourage those resources to say, it's okay if you say we can't handle it?
Well, I mean, we do, any land use application, we notify a couple dozen different agencies or jurisdictions, and request for any kind of input from them. And, you know, and if they have an issue or if they have concerns, they let us know what their comments are in regards to that. But, you know, most of the services or agencies that we notify have plans in place that acknowledge that they can handle the oncoming growth, because they have plans for it. You know, same type of thing as we have comprehensive plans that look at how are we going to grow and how are we going to handle all the services that are necessary. You know, are there some that, you know, question whether they can handle it today? When we eventually see the Coeur development annexation coming in, you know, there will be some discussions amongst the service providers as to who can handle it, how can they handle it, but they also need to recognize that it's going to take 20 or 30 years for a project like that to develop, so they just incorporate it into their plans as to how they're going to be prepared and ready for it.
There's also impact fees and funding mechanisms that happen with each building permit. You get an incremental step up to help growth pay for itself.
Does that answer?
No, I think that's
Generally.
helpful. I think the other rule of thumb is, Victoria, is a general rule, especially cities like Coeur d'Alene that have full service. And remember that an annexation is an agreement between the owner and the city. Cities don't typically agree to annex if they can't service, because by law they have to within a certain time frame. Okay?
So, because that's a different impression than I have been given by some people.
Well, I mean, we need to
So,
be on the same playing
that's good to
field.
hear.
Some cities don't have full service. Some cities have water and sewer districts and other things, and that's where it gets tricky. They have to work with their service providers, make sure that this is all gonna work out. But again, as a general rule, no city's gonna put themselves in a bind where they've annexed something they can't service.
That's good to
That's
hear.
just a political nightmare
Yeah.
for the city council. I know, because I've been there.
That's good to hear.
Well, some of the areas that might be annexed have private providers too, you know, private companies
Yes,
that
sir.
are providing the water
Yes, sir.
and things like that.
That's
So
true.
that can make a real difference too, because what does the city do if you got, you know, a private, you know, drinking water provider that in an area that wants to be annexed? And so it, you know, it's I know there's parts of Idaho that have, the city owns the power company in some of those little towns down in central and southern Idaho.
In Post Falls, we have a number of water purveyors, and they still have, and they have their set boundaries. And so when subdivisions develop within those areas, those water purveyors continue to provide the water service. When there are small, there occasionally we've run across a few that have like community wells, and as those larger, let's say that's like, you know, 6 or 7 5-acre parcels that are all on the same well system. As they've come in, the individual 5-acre parcels have turned over to return their water rights and said that they no longer are pulling from that well system. So then they hook up to the local purveyor. So in time, you know, that water system that's been set up for those 5 or 6 large parcels will go away, but that's just kind of how it generally flows.
Thank you.
I have a curiosity question, Bob. You said that in the future you see the cities talking to each other and cooperating or whatever, negotiating, you might say. Was there any of that kind of discussion among cities when these were brought up?
Yes.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, we went to the table and talked to. Our focus was Rathdrum, Hayden, Coeur d'Alene. We worked with talking to Hauser, and we worked with talking to Hutter. Hauser and Hutter, I don't think really worked out, Hutter just stopped returning emails. But no, the big players, we had a lot of conversations with to draw those lines. And
That would have to do with the boundaries, but what about, I mean, Ben brought up the point that Coeur d'Alene has, I don't know what you call them, more trigger points than anybody else.
And
So do you look at that from a competitive standpoint? If they got that many, we should have more, or if they got
No.
that many, that's great.
No, it doesn't work that way.
That's my question.
no, I think every, again, these which we get incorporated by county ordinance, these are to govern each city's area of impact. So it really is a specifically tailored agreement ordinance between the city and the county of this is what's going to apply in this specific area.
I haven't really read much of these yet, so I apologize for that, but one thing that caught my eye was Athol has a 35-foot height restriction, and Post Falls is like 45-foot height restriction. So I wondered if I just wonder why there's not, I wondered if there was any discussion that might create some uniformity, but apparently uniformity wasn't a high on anybody's priority list.
If I could,
Yeah, jump in there.
if I could address that on behalf of the city of Athol, I would say that Post Falls is a fair bit more urban than Athol is, and city of Athol doesn't really care what happens in Post Falls, and but they really very much care what happens in the city and the immediate surrounding area, and the city standard up there is a 35-foot height limit, and they argued pretty significantly about that, thinking that might be too high. And, but they would also, don't feel it appropriate for them to impose their judgment on what goes on in other cities and so on. And so this idea of trying to be uniform for the sake of uniformity, maybe there's some validity to that in the urban area that is Coeur d'Alene, Post Falls, Hayden, eventually Rathdrum, kind of all grows together. But certainly where you've got these outlying cities, I don't think there's any justification for it.
Yeah, and two things about that. One is the height limit is just the one that my eyes saw. I didn't mean to pick on it or to raise your hackles.
You didn't.
And I'm the last one to argue for one size fits all. So I understand your point exactly.
Yeah, I mean, really, each city's character is, what you're fundamentally saying is, the city fathers and mothers determine the city character with these nuances, and they should have the ability to do that. That makes sense.
Yeah, and for us, for Athol, the issues there after having implemented the pre-existing area city impact agreement over the years and replying to any number of development applications and so on, and the thing that repeatedly was problematic for us was development on private roads or subdivisions on private roads, and that was the thing that we repeatedly had to step on somebody's toes over and say, no, we're because we don't allow that in the city. We don't have private roads in the city of Athol, and with the pre-existing ACI agreement, the city's subdivision standards apply and so on and so forth, and that required frontage on a public road for newly created lots. And so, again, that's what you see. It really is. Those two things are the two standards in our agreement. We have this height standard, and we have this issue for lot size and lot width and frontage on a public standard road. And so those are the issues for us, and we didn't feel the need to ask for any more than that. And for us, it's reducing the size of the ACI to be something that's more realistic. and protecting their ability to be able to annex, you know, if a good candidate comes along. And so that's what was important to Athol.
Madam Chair, the one other thing I can think to add for your public hearing is that my suggestion will be you have open the hearing for all the items, have one hearing, let everyone talk, but then make separate motions for each ordinance. That way it's clear in the record what happens, but saves you opening and closing. So as a matter of efficiency, I think these are close enough you can handle it, like we have in other cases, always one hearing.
Okay, so we don't have to open and close and open and
Thank you,
close.
that would be my suggestion. Yes, sir.
One thought on that. We will be in attendance. If you have any questions of us, let us know. Otherwise, we don't plan on saying anything.
Thank you for being here. It may be useful if the public shows up. We may need you.
We'll be there.
But I'm being told there's really, shouldn't be much controversy.
Shouldn't be.
But there may be.
Well, let's take the data centers, for example.
Oh my gosh.
That was a surprising one, yeah.
That surprised me here, but it surprised me in triplicate at the county commissioners, because there were 3 times as many people show up there as here. I've done this long enough to know I can never predict it. Never. I get a feel for it, but I'm not gonna tell you I know what's gonna happen.
Well, depends upon how many people show up.
Well, it swayed the board to go from your recommendation to no data centers at all. I was gonna bring that up
I mean, get us all t-shirts.
under announcements, but
Get us all t-shirts and targets on it for these things.
you already have that. You're a planning commissioner. But when we get to announcement, I'll go into more detail of what the board did with data centers. Yes, sir.
You may also just have confusion from the public, right? Like, why are we having this? And so, I do see possible turnout for, the county's establishing these new areas of impact, whereas, no, we're just amending the boundaries a little bit. And so, I think there might be a little bit of
The
that.
assumption could be another layer of bureaucracy.
Exactly.
I think too that if you guys and the county folks make sure the public understands that this was something that came down from the state legislature too, that isn't all of us up here doing our own thing or something like that, that we had to react to the new legislation that the state passed.
And that's why we plan on being there.
Just a second. I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Will we have the complete graphics for the maps at that point?
Yes, we can put it on the screen
Okay,
so you can see it that way.
because not all of them were included here.
By the way, thank you for, if you didn't hear, not all the graphics are included in your handout, but all of them are online under keepingkootenai.com.
Yeah, I ended up downloading it.
So you can see for yourself in color,
They're also on our website too.
both. Right, it's just easier for most people to remember, keepingkootenai.com.
David, a question for you. The Athol map was one that I had just kind of edited, and so you could see the before and after. Are you guys gonna do a new map, or do you want the city to do a new map? Because when you adopt one, it shouldn't really have the old one and my chicken scratch on the top and stuff like that.
We could get our GIS department to do it.
Okay, I just didn't know if you want the city to do that, or if that was something that you guys could do.
If you would
but-
just email me saying that, I'll forward it to Jeff Benson and he'll
Okay.
do it. Because
Okay.
Jeff has said he'll do maps.
Okay,
What he won't do is legal description.
yeah, no, I feel good about the legal description, but the map was useful for this,
Of course.
for this purpose, but
No, we can
not,
help, we can help with maps.
okay.
Yes, sir.
Since we're on the subject of maps, I did want to point out, there is a little bit of, if you look at the Post Falls map and the Hauser map, there's a little bit of overlap at the Chase Road and Highway 53. Pleasant View and Highway 53.
Yeah.
We have been in discussions with Hauser. Hauser does not, or is okay with that not being in their ACI, but it is shown as as overlap
Oh.
in the current map. So
Okay, so we just need to clarify.
just so that we, or you know that that's there.
Thank you. We might bring that up at the hearing too. Just so it's
Yeah.
clear that what finally gets adopted will be such and such.
I just noticed too, there's like two different types of maps. It would be helpful if they were uniform, if possible.
Oh, you mean one city's map is different from another city's?
Yeah, it's like this one's an aerial view and then
We'll
this.
fix that with our GIS system. I think we were relying on the cities to help us make sure that we were getting what they wanted. But once we go to actual publication, we can use our GIS system to make sure all the maps look similar.
Yeah, and I don't know if Commissioner Slater was asking for different maps to be provided at the actual hearing, or if this is something, because I don't know if we'll have that
Well-
available.
No, we won't.
I'm not a great, super duper map reader, but trying to translate these based on his comment, it's, if both these were like this, then I could understand it better. Make sense? Not that
Yeah.
never mind, it doesn't really.
To that point, on our map, it does show Hauser's is the hatched, area of impact.
Oh, I see.
And then
So that's the only area
that's the only area, we've been calling it like the thing in the back of the throat.
Trachea?
The little, the trachea, the dangly thing there, so.
Are the current ACIs, or I guess they're now AOIs, are the current standards that you are working on still on your individual city website? So if we wanted to do a comparison to just check what your new suggestions are versus what you're currently working under, is that possible? Or is
Actually,
everything?
our GIS system shows what's current. The counties, you can go on the county's webpage and see what's current.
To see if there's, how it's different. I just wanted to
Yeah.
see how it's different from, like, Coeur d'Alene standards. What are the difference for the triggers from
What you could do is actually
there
go
to
to
now?
our current code.
Right.
So our current code, the county's code, has the area of city impacts.
Okay,
Within them, and you can map them side by side, map's the wrong word, you can align them side by side.
Yeah.
And just see what is current, what is proposed.
okay, yeah, I just like seeing the differences for a better frame of reference. Thank you, Ben.
So of these 5, how many of the areas have shrunk? All of them? Athol's is shrunk, right?
Athol is probably 50%.
Yeah, I would assume that everyone's has shrunk. The caveat with ours, because it was that shared tier with Rathdrum, Hayden, it's where that shared tier was drawn. So theoretically, you could argue that the shared tier counted or it didn't count, so.
So that effectively, does that, if I'm understanding it right then, when the area is now shrunk, there's a certain area that's deregulated in a sense, because it's not subject to these agreements.
Yeah, so if it's an area outside of any city's area of impact,
Like Athol, I'm looking at Athol. you know.
like Athol,
It shrinks.
Revert back to county.
Yep.
County.
Significantly.
yep,
Supervision.
county supervision, it doesn't necessarily prevent annexation, should it? So like again, I'm Post Falls, so, for ours, like out on Beck Road, if, it'll never happen, but there's some industrial, sort of in that state line area that would be north of the city. That technically we are not including that in our area of impact. But if we did plan for it, and they requested to come in, there's some ways to do that. But, generally speaking, no, if it's not in a area of impact, then it's the county's regulations apply. Even in the area of impact, the county's regulations apply. We're just, no, that's currently how it is. How it is right now is in the exclusive tier and the shared tier in our areas of city impact. It's county property. It's county regulations. It's just we're coming to an agreement about what regulations were gonna apply. It's like an overlay.
Well,
That makes sense.
it's gotta the county and the city in the area of AOI are determining what additional regulations, if any, would apply, 35-foot height limit, whatever, are gonna apply in that area. So by shrinking it, then you're gonna have people who won't be subject to certain regulations otherwise would be subject to. And
Sure.
I'm always looking for, where's the controversy gonna come? And there could be people who are unhappy about that. Because they want a 35, just use a 35-foot, for example, they want a 35-foot limit, now that's not gonna apply in their area around the city. Because now they're just under the county regulations, so.
And that's true. So looking at Athol's outside that red line in their former area,
The green area outside the
somebody
line.
could build 45 feet.
Right, and when I'm just trying to be ready for, where is controversy gonna come from? And it seems like, I don't know if this is, real or imagined, but we'll find out. There could be people who are upset that now they're not, they don't have their neighbors under the regulations that were once there.
I think perhaps maybe one area, because we've been touching on this exclusive tier and the shared tier. If you recall, the shared tier is kind of like no man's land. There is limited standards that apply, and those are within the areas of Rathdrum, Post Falls, and Hayden. So not one particular city had specific plans for annexation, and so they had light standards within that area. Now what we're looking at here is that shared tier essentially going away, and each Rathdrum, Post Falls, and Hayden are essentially incorporating all of that area within their AOIs. So how that may impact people is like with subdivision potential. Right now within exclusive tiers for those cities, you have connection to city water and sewer. But if you were in the shared tier, you don't have that same standard. Now that those properties are going to be within a specific area of impact, if someone wants to subdivide in that area, it is a requirement that they connect to city water and sewer. Essentially, it's going to be requiring annexation. So that is potentially where you could have some people upset saying, look, I wasn't held to the standard before, now I am, and I don't like it, so.
And that's, to that point, that's really what these are meant to limit, is you're trying to limit urban development outside of an urban city. So you're trying to limit somebody subdividing down to quarter-acre lots, 6,000-foot lots.
5 mile
out-
lot, or a
out.
5 acre lot. Yeah,
Exactly,
yeah.
out in the middle of no man's land.
How long is this, how often do they redo this?
Well,
For,
said have to be visited every 5 years, or
Yeah.
at least every 5 years,
Has
So-
to be revisited.
right?
okay,
Yeah.
Visit it
so if they take and, say Post Falls, their area of impact, if they built to that limit, then after a certain length of time, does that limit go beyond there? So that it increases another 2 miles?
It'd be renegotiated, it goes
Yeah,
through
the-
a process just like this.
Yeah, I don't know that the agreements need to be renegotiated, but the boundary will need to be renegotiated from time to time, as if the cities grow. They will eventually, that 2 mile boundary will change a little bit, or we'll say, you know what, we're really not gonna get to that area likely in 5 years. And so those type of things will happen consistently.
I had one other question too. Of course, I used to be a licensed land surveyor in the state of Idaho, so, and I noticed in Coeur d'Alene's, they've got a kind of a meets and bounds description. And I was wondering, you can draw a map, but you can understand it. You get on the very edges of a drawn map, and if you don't have a kind of a meets and bounds type of description of your area, then you can get into a lawsuit or a problem or something like that. I just wonder if everybody's gonna have.
Yes,
Okay.
that's required.
Yeah, because that's really important.
We just haven't gotten there for the sake of efficiency, we're going with maps. We will have legals before. the
Legal
county adopts
descriptions,
ordinance.
okay, good, that's fine.
Are you gonna touch on?
I forgot.
I would maybe just add to what we were hearing over here from the city of Post Falls is that, with the exception of if there's another boundary that already exists, then there's not gonna be any overlapping, so it doesn't like extend automatically. So for instance, like the southern boundary of Rathdrum and the northern boundary of Post Falls, that's the line. You're not gonna be able to get any overlapping from the city of Post Falls and any on the other side from Rathdrum. So just by annexing all the way to that limit doesn't mean that they're gonna go any further north, for instance, but yeah.
Oh, it came to me. AOI is like any agreement. It can always be rediscussed. You just have to have willing parties.
I would point out though too that most of the county's agreements, the existing ones, were adopted in the mid-90s, never revisited, with the exception of Post Falls, Rathdrum, and Hayden, which did this consolidated ACI in 2005, and again, never revisited. Even though that one was only, it's supposed to be in effect for 3 years when it was initially done. And it was supposed to be superseded with something different. And so the likelihood of these, I suspect the map will be revisited periodically. But I suspect the standards probably not so much.
The shared tier, the existing agreements that we were under before the law changed were working out really well for this area. We're just doing what Boise wants us to do, so.
Anything else?
Maybe we need to secede, make Coeur our capital.
Good luck with that. Well,
Actually, you guys are gonna be there. Are any of the other cities gonna be at the hearing? Sorry.
yes.
Thank you.
Coeur d'Alene,
Okay, good.
I think Hillary will be here, or Sean.
You mentioned there's some cities that sound like they may be resistant, or they're just
They're just
haven't
slow.
worked out a.
They're just slow.
Okay, slow.
Some cities don't have full staff.
Right, okay,
I mean, Dalton Gardens comes to mind,
right.
but they're working on it. Okay. Unless there's questions, I think we can move on to announcements.
Okay,
Is that all right?
yeah, absolutely.
I have one thing, just to follow up on data centers. It was something of a shock at the county commissioner hearing when 3 times as many people showed up. And the county commissioners were persuaded that, these are my words, not theirs, but data centers are evil. And so the county commissioners approved our request for the CUP process that you had recommended until such time that our legal counsel can come back with another new ordinance that eliminates data centers altogether in the unincorporated county. So there you have it.
That could be a problem.
Private property rights.
That's-
You know that.
A constitutional issue.
I know.
Oh, yeah, I know it is.
It's a political call. There's some things I choose not to argue.
You
You
just,
probably won't have to worry about it by the time it comes around.
just when I think some of the folks thought that because we were trying to be careful about, like, constitutional right, private property rights, that we were somehow in favor of them, but that
Yeah,
wasn't the case at all.
that
No.
wasn't it.
No.
No, not at all.
I think so.
Oh.
I mean, it's a not in my backyard movement, right?
Yeah.
They want to use AI when they want to use it, but they don't want any data center in their backyard.
Yeah, it's classic.
Human nature.
It's like the cell phone.
Yeah.
It's gonna kill me, but I'm using it every day, every hour. All right, well, that's all I have.
Any other announcements?
Vacancies on the plan commission?
Yeah,
You got,
have we,
we have one of the 3 of you that Zup has reapplied. You haven't, and John's not.
What
So
Yeah.
you've reapplied, is that right?
Yeah, they asked me
Somebody
to
look at the
reply.
Okay.
Are you reapplying?
I thought I told somebody already. I'm
you
not.
did,
So
you did.
Okay, so that means we got 2 vacancies on the plan commission. And usually the board advertises by now, and then starts accepting and then reviewing, and then interviewing,
But they haven't done
but
that.
they haven't done that yet, because I think you're the only one that's,
I just got a call one day and said, you want to renew, don't you?
and I'm glad.
I said, what is it? I'm renewing. So
But,
thank you very much. I'll put your name down. So that's great.
Well, you know, the thing I would appreciate is you all know it's a time commitment, it's an energy commitment.
Yeah.
But you also know people in the community that you think might be good at this. And if you would put a bug in their ear, if you'll pardon the southern expression, I would be appreciative. Because these kinds of groups work best with people that are engaged and thoughtful and sincere, and you know some of those people. So I could use your help.
What about you? Are you signing up again or no?
I'm retiring in January.
I knew you were talking about it, yeah. Well, congratulations.
Thank you kindly.
So who takes over?
The commissioners are advertising and will start interviewing. I'll be included in the interviews. But there is no known heir apparent.
So will there be an interim?
That's a commissioner call, and I don't know.
Ben?
We'll see.
They haven't discussed that with me, the commissioners I mean, so I don't know. After 45 years of working in this world, I've decided there's some things I don't need to know.
One point of clarification, you said there were 3 openings, Lee and me and,
Two, me.
Madeline.
and you're gonna re-up. You're not?
So,
So there's you.
so the presumption is they'll reappoint you, but that means we've got 2 spots to fill.
That's how I look at
Hey,
it.
you don't want to leave, do you?
But you just said you had property rights covered, so I feel, I feel comfortable.
No, come on. We have such good discussions.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, yeah, but it takes a lot of time and
What is it, 3 years? Is that what it is?
I think 3-year term.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. That's all I have. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Good input, thank you. Helpful.
Thank you for listening to us.
If there's nothing else.
Oh, you want something on?
I just had a final question. When we're gonna have the consultant firm come in and meet
Yeah,
with
we're
us. and-
rescheduling
Reschedule.
with
Okay,
that.
so, yeah. I saw you I just got an email, reschedule.
Yeah, the reason was we wanted to include the Parks and Recreation, Parks and Waterways group and their board in this discussion with you and county commission. So we're all off on the same start at the same time. Because you remember the Parks Master Plan, first time ever for the county. We want to make sure that the county's Parks and Waterways people are involved.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful rest of the day.